You're live.
Okay, good morning. We'll call the meeting to order at 10 a.m. And the first order of business is, hopefully everybody's had a chance to look over the agenda. Would anybody like to declare any conflicts of interest? Okay, and hearing any, we'll proceed. And we have a guest, Dave Tatana from BWB, to present our preliminary financials.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. Anybody need a copy of the report, or would rather have a copy, or?
It's in our packet.
It's in your packet?
Yeah, Pam made copies.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well, in the packet is a preliminary copy that I'd like to walk you through. There's a couple open items. I do think we have one adjustment that we'll talk through as well. But I think this will give you a good overview of the 2021 year. And I'll walk you through some of the key highlights of the year. First off, if you turn to the first and second page is our independent audit report. And, you know, I think all of you have been on the board from at least last year. And if you were to pull out last year's audit compared to this year's audit, it would look a lot different, this report. Pretty major overhaul by the AICPA, the group that governs us, on how this is reflected. And the first biggest change is, you'll notice the very first paragraph is our opinion, which used to be embedded forward towards the end. And now it's the first. Well, because it's the most important. Us providing that opinion on whether or not your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We're providing clean, unmodified opinion. So the same overall opinion as prior years, just kind of a movement to the top versus more in the middle in prior years. What were some of the other changes in the responsibility for management? You'll notice a paragraph, the second paragraph, that talks about going concern and the evaluation of whether or not we can continue a year past December 31st, 2021. Well, that's always been a requirement. And years ago, you know, there was a lot of consideration, and we had to think through that. And there was actually footnotes within the financial statement that described a little bit about the entity and what your plans were. So nothing's changed there. It's just now just in writing. Okay. The biggest area of change is actually the next section, the auditor's responsibility. And the first paragraph talks a little bit about, you know, what assurance are we providing? It's reasonable assurance. It's not absolute. It's a high level of assurance, but not absolute. And part of that is there's descriptions of, you know, if there was fraud. Well, fraud's hard to detect during the course of a financial audit, and it gets even harder if there's collusion among staff members. And then it goes on to talk a little bit about, you know, what some of our responsibilities are to exercise professional judgment, to identify the risks of material in the statement, so a risk assessment, and where we should chart our course for the audit. The next page talks a little bit about internal controls. This isn't geared to be an internal control audit. However, we're required to understand your controls, but we don't provide an opinion on controls. Evaluate your accounting policies and principles. And then lastly, just like you, we have a responsibility to evaluate going concern. All those bullet points were in play in prior years. They're now just embedded within the financial statements. But I think it adds value, and it kind of really gives a little bit clearer picture of what the audit's all about. So I think sometimes when we make changes to reports, we make changes to change things. But this year, I think they were more substantive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Okay. Any questions with regards to the report? All right. I'm going to walk through just very high level numbers and some of the document. Page 3 through 6 is what's referred to as a management discussion and analysis. I like this section because just for the, you know, to get a big picture of how did we do during the current year compared to the prior year. somebody from the public, they just wanted to get a big picture overview, this would be a nice section to read. And it kind of describes, why some things went up or down, expenses, what were included in some of our expenses. So it's really quite a nice section. But I'll turn to page 7, which is the agency's statement of net position. So this is our assets, what we own, our liabilities, who we owe, and then what's left over. And we have really 3 different columns, and they're each of the entities of the IDA. Obviously, our main operations is the far left. We have a capital resource corporation, which has very little activity. And then lastly, we have ACUC, which is our Crossroads Utility Corporation, which was new, I think, last year as far as activity is concerned. And you'll notice that overall we achieved $5 million in total assets. Our liabilities remained relatively consistent at $4 million. So we increased our total net position from $650,000 to about $1 million. Okay. The one adjustment that we're going to make is in that line called property held for resale. That's $881,000. Included in that number are really a couple different things. One, it's the land that we purchased a number of years ago, along with some improvements of like 20 acres or so. And so that's included in that number. And then in addition to that, there's the truck stop and land associated with the truck stop of about $400,000. And based on discussions with Craig, really the actual building, which was torn down and then reconstruction, along with a couple acres, was transferred to the new entity that's there. And then we retained 3 acres. So I think ultimately of that 400,000, we should write down that asset to basically the value of the 2 acres of land.
Land is left.
Okay. So more than likely, that might be a $350,000, $360,000 adjustment down.
From 400?
From 400, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because most of it was transferred. The building itself and some land was transferred. That was most of the value.
How do we come up? Do we have to get an appraisal?
We have an
Is that what you
appraisal.
reckon?
I can send you
He's got
the
an
appraisal.
appraisal. It's just land, 2 acres, I think.
Okay.
We don't need to get, we don't need to
I
spend
don't think we have to
money.
get crazy.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Any questions? ACUC, you can see that column currently sits as a negative $50,000, and then it has an amount owed to the IDA. And we had a pretty extensive discussion with Craig and your attorney Ian Spitzer on, what do we do? Should we keep that $50,000 deficit, or should we forgive some of the amount owed to the IDA and more or less wipe out the $50,000? And ultimately, I think it was decided to kind of leave the 50,000 because you're currently in discussions with the county on ACUC and kind of to let that play out for 2022. And, if nothing happens, then I think you'll probably need to move on it and do something. If it does play out, then, somehow that'll get adjusted through the transaction.
Just because we can't continue to carry it with
Exactly.
no action.
Yeah, because ultimately, the IDA is gonna have to eat the deficit.
Okay.
And so, I think the fact that you're in discussions on potentially transferring that or something, some arrangement, it seemed like it was worthwhile to keep it as is. Okay. Now that's a for-profit entity, so, you'll show a loss on your tax return. and that loss, eventually, if the loan to the IDA is forgiven, that'll be reported as income, and we'll get to carry forward the loss to offset the income. So in year one, it's just a loss that'll create a net operating loss that it'll have the ability to carry forward. Okay. Okay, page 8 is the revenue and expenditures and changes in our net position. And again, same 3 buckets, 3 columns. Focus on the far left, you'll notice the IDA had over $1 million of revenue. Expenses were about $650,000. So we had a change of $404,000. And then you'll see revenue and expenditures that are considered pass-through transactions, which we didn't have last year, but they're pretty significant this year. And some really good developments there. First off, included in that is pilots that ultimately got worked out in 2021. So we received funds and we transferred them to the school, the county, and also the municipality. And then also we received a grant that got passed through as well. And that I think was like $170,000 in that range. Okay. But again, very positive operations. Again, plus $400,000. If you look at some of the activity up above, you'll see your fee line, that very top line, actually exceeded where it was last year. So you've had really 2 strong years in fees. A lot of that was due to the energy type projects, renewable energy projects. Included in there was our pilot. We get a percentage of the pilot administration dollars. And then also a fee from Great Lakes is included in there as well. Okay, expenditures. You can see the breakdown of the expenditures. Most significantly is our legal and professional. Those are attorney fees. We had a big secret and also geo drilling.
Yeah, all the Great Lakes cheese related projects
were included in that amount as well. Okay. And then ACUC, and last year, if you look at the very bottom, we had a positive net position of $8,000. And that's because we received that grant from New York, and then we, did the work, and some of that was capitalized. And so this year is really kind of more reflective of our operations. We had $37,000 of income and $95,000 of expense. And so we had a net loss from operations of about $60,000.
Does it show in here how much of the interest expense is the bond and how much of it is our mortgage? Is that broken out anywhere?
It is in the disclosures.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
There's some really good, and I'll point them out. Yep. Okay. So, any questions on the financial statements?
Just wanted, we'll just remove that.
Okay.
Vehicles.
Yeah, you don't own vehicles.
Yeah.
Pages 10 through 13 are the notes to the financial statements. A lot of good information in here. If you want to turn to actually page 12 and page 13, that gives you a good perspective of all the debt that we currently have and the maturities on them. Really, pretty detailed information. You've refinanced the debt over years, and this kind of gives you what your current future maturities look like. Okay. Page 13, see a little bit on the operating leases, which is the far left top column. So that talks a little bit about our building and some of the leases that we have, and then our maturity schedule, but we're anticipating that we have agreements for over the next 20 years is reflected there as well. And then pass-through transactions.
You were saying in the future those are going to change, right?
Yeah, so included in the management letter, we have a comment about accounting for leases. And it's a new standard that's in effect for next year, where the reporting of leases will change both on the lessor side, which would be us, and the leasee side. In the past, operating leases, for instance, space, has been more on the income statement. And in the future, some of that will actually be shown also on the balance sheet. We'll show assets and liabilities. And then you'll still have expenses related to that, and revenue, but it'll just be categorized a little bit differently than it is in the current year. And so we'll help out in assisting in transitioning to that new standard. Okay. Any questions on that?
Straightforward.
Okay. The next section is, if you turn to page 15, it reflects our independent auditor's report on compliance and internal controls. And as mentioned, we're not actually providing an opinion on your compliance with controls or your overall internal controls, and we're not giving you an opinion on your compliance. But during the course of the audit, if there's anything that we see that we believe is, warrants a comment, it's included within these financial statements. So we have a couple findings, four, that are starting on page 17 that I'd like to go through. A couple are just consistent with what we've had in the past. The first one being adjusting journal entries, disclosures. We play a role in helping you put this document together. Some of the disclosures that are included. We make some journal entries during the course of the audit. And, that's a comment that we've made in the past and will continue to make in the future. Okay? So nothing to be alarmed with that. The second page, on page 18, segregation of duties. Well, we're a small entity. For the most part, PM plays a major role in recording and receiving and doing the records. And, although the board plays a role in oversight, Craig plays a role in reviewing things, ultimately, we have very few people doing the same operations. And that just is a risk. And so, that's a tough one. We're probably not going to overcome that. It'll be just a continual thing that the board has to be aware of that. And just you play a little bit higher role than, maybe an entity that's a large entity that doesn't have that, that has good segregation of duties. Don't have to be as concerned in that situation.
Can I ask you a question about that? So Pam, you have in your file cabinet, like every check you write, you've got all the backup that goes with every single check, just like a municipality would have like a voucher system. Could we just have those available to us? Even if it's 1 month after she pays those, would that be better?
Yeah, I do. I showed it to Doug. I do a whole spreadsheet.
I know,
spread it
but
out.
we don't, as a board, get to look at it.
I think that would be a more interesting financial information to you because I put it down as who I paid and what that expense came out of, and then I categorize it by IDA,
Right.
Crossroads, OFA, like that. And then,
I don't want our board to have to do this, but we don't have enough staff.
right.
You
And then
so-
I also include all of the deposits and what bank account they went into. And it's been an evolving process to do that spreadsheet every month. And I've been now I've been doing it by the dates of the bank statement.
Right.
So that it'll continue on.
Well, it says in this response that the treasurer's gonna be reviewing bank statements and bank reconciliations. We're not doing that.
No,
Craig-
I looked
Craig
at it.
He looks at it.
So why did we say the treasurer?
Oh.
That's what it says here.
Well,
What says you're going to begin?
can we start next month?
I
You
could
have that
send
stuff on
him-
the table. No, they can just sit here and people,
Okay.
let's get some people here a little bit early if you want, and let's look through these and sign off on them.
Sure.
At least some of us, I'll do it. I'll
Sure.
be here. I'm always here way early. Maybe Doug, I don't know if you can, maybe at least there's.
That'd be the better way to do it.
So
That's
we all
what we
get
do
a
in
look
other
at
small
what the bills
organizations.
are, what the checks
Sure.
are.
Sure.
I don't want to reconcile the bank account. I don't know how we get around that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes what I've seen in small organizations is, you know, this is option two.
Yeah.
Is, at the board meeting, there's a monthly bill list and the invoices are available. And then if there's any questions on a particular payment, you know, it's right there that Pam can pull it out and say, yeah, here's what the services were, here's what the goods we ordered.
Before we pay it, or don't we necessarily
Yeah,
have to
that's
do
a
it?
good question.
All right.
Um,
I mean, I don't want
Yeah.
to cause her another part-time job trying to
Yeah.
prepare for this,
exactly.
you know, but if she could give us all the information and then we can all look at it, we can still ask, okay, if it's a month late, we still can ask a question. It's not like, you know.
Then you could just make a recommendation saying, next time this one comes through, you know, hold
We don't
off
have a
on
lot
it,
of, we
we
need
to
most
look
of
at
it's regular stuff,
It's
so.
more of just having a good
Having
practice
available.
in place. You know, nobody thinks anybody's gonna steal any money, but I just think it makes sense for us to just get in the habit.
Well, maybe it would be a good idea when we post the meeting times, and if the meeting is at 10, that financial review or whatever we want to call it would be at 9:30 or
9:30,
9
yeah.
o'clock or something, and that it would be in the record that we're doing that.
And you already have the whole list of checks that have been written, so that you can then figure out which ones you want to look at.
Can you just
You know what
pull
I'm
your
saying?
folder out for the
You
month?
already
Is it
have
that
that.
easy? Because I don't want it to be a big
Angels,
job
let
for
me
you.
grab one for you so you can.
I would think it would be fine, because you've already got the list of checks. and
So
then
let's not hold Dave up anymore, but I mean.
I think we
let's
can figure that
start- Yeah,
out.
let's start
Yeah.
doing that, so go ahead. Dave.
It's an
I'm
easy
sorry.
fix.
The next two comments are new, and they're somewhat related. First one talks a little bit about bank reconciliations, and, you know, when we commenced the audit, there was a difference between what was, you know, the balance in your records compared to ultimately what was on your bank recs. And so we spent a lot of time, you know, going through and trying to evaluate what the difference was. And ultimately, I think the majority of it was just related to some that was not posted within your, so it was, you know, a transaction that we paid for, we just didn't get reflected within our system. And so, you know, again, cash, the bank rec, is one of the most important controls that you have. So it's critical to have that done and that those two things match up. I can tell you, you know, currently you use a software system that's just, it's tough to really trace the transactions. And so even when we were trying to evaluate what the difference is, you know, that was a project, and it makes it difficult. And I think, you know, back when you had very little cash, very little transactions, maybe it worked. But now, you know, we've got 2 back-to-back years where.
Well, the difference was we had a treasurer that was actually putting it fully into a spreadsheet too.
Yeah, also
We had,
kind of an
You remember.
ancillary system that you were.
we're really doing 2 sets
Dual
of books
system.
almost, yeah.
What do we use, Quicken?
Yeah,
We
we're
need to
talking,
move to QuickBooks?
that's what we're talking about doing,
I
right?
would say you need to move to something. You know, there's QuickBooks, Peachtree, there's other,
But QuickBooks
municipal-
is nice and easy, so.
yeah, QuickBooks is a relatively, you know, used by a lot of small organizations. But I think it, you know, number one, the transactions and the reports will be a lot easier to read. Some of maybe even the board reports will be easier to
There'll be
print.
better board reports.
The bank reconciliation process that you're currently doing, it's more manual. I think that can be done right on the system,
Right.
where you can check which, you know, checks got cleared and then here's the balance, and it's all automated.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to investigate moving to a different system. Again, you're bigger now too. You've got more transactions flowing. You've
So
got
the-
ACUC that has activity.
Right.
Mhm.
So once Pam learned it, it might be safer time.
I think it would.
I think so.
Okay.
And Dave said
Have you had any
they've got some people that
experience
could
in
help
that system?
transition.
No.
Not enough, okay.
But you've got some people that could
We've
help
got some
transition,
folks, yeah,
which would be good.
and they have good trainings online too.
Okay.
There's like
Between the
really-
2, I think we can get up to speed, and actually you'll be better off.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so that's really those, and then the very last section, 21 and 22, is our management letter. Some of these comments we've made in the past, like forecasting and in-kind donations. We do record some in-kind donations for some of your staff and the time that they're working on the IDA versus county. Page 22, now we've got a new pilot agreement just to continue to, look at what the terms and conditions are compared to what we're receiving and monitor that. And then the last two comments are new. One being collateral of cash. Again, we didn't have to worry about this years ago, but now, our cash level actually exceeds the FDIC balance. And I mentioned to Craig, a lot of banks provide additional collateral. So some entities go that way. You could also, split some of your cash and go to different institutions.
Put in a CD or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So something to look at, but again, I guess that's a good problem to have. Yeah, your cash balances, now are at a level that you have to kind of look at that. And then lastly, we talked through leases, and this gives you a little background on the new standard and what will come in play for next year. So again, we'll give you some material on it, and then we'll also, kind of go over some of the changes that'll happen next year. Okay.
What pilot agreement are you talking about? Is that with the, where it varies from the original pilot? Is that the
It's
cogen?
The Alliance one.
Alliance one is the, yeah.
Is that almost done?
Yeah, that was the one that we ended up getting that large payment from, which transacted through us. It was a different pilot where we actually got a percentage as well.
Okay.
And it's, like you said, they're all paid up to date
Right.
until next year, so.
Yeah, now are the new projects, are they, pilot eligible?
Well, we're doing all pilots, but that was an unusual one that went through us. All the other ones, they go directly through the county,
They're gonna go directly to the county, gotcha.
which is why Dan's here.
So we should still maintain a worksheet, a spreadsheet for this pilot?
I think,
until-
yeah, anything
okay.
that comes through us,
Right,
that we're gonna have to distribute out.
which is that one, yeah.
Yeah, we have to, just annually look at the agreement, make sure it agrees with what came in and
Right.
what's going on.
Okay.
All right, so again, we'll make that adjustment on the land held for resale. Got a couple of responses that we need for the comments that we have, and then we'll be in a position to finalize them.
Okay. So
Good.
can Doug work with Craig on those
Yeah.
responses?
Yeah.
Yeah, please get Doug.
Yeah, we'll get
involved.
those taken care of.
I normally get an inquiry on FOD. Is that coming out good before you?
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
No, I'm not looking for it.
Usually there's a question that comes out,
Yeah,
A
my question.
questionnaire.
Questionnaire.
I haven't got it yet.
We didn't get that this time.
Yeah, just those little things that we covered.
Yes.
I mean, that's just a minor.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's very good.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Just give me on that. Jen.
We'll get those answers to you. I'll work with Doug, and then, like I said, we want to,
Good shape.
I think we discussed on the phone, I haven't talked to Pam yet, I think I'd like to go to QuickBooks in the near future. So she's doing that this year, so then in January, we can just drop Quicken. In other words, let's not wait until January and say, oh my God, I'm starting a new
Yeah,
system. Let's
right.
start now. So she's got a few months under her belt and do both systems. I
We
think
can talk
that makes
about
more
that
sense.
during-
Don't you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk about it during new business maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we do the
I just
action
want to make sure
items-
Dave was here on that.
So we do the action items that you suggest or everything else, then that takes it to the preliminary, then for the final audit, that we say we address those. Is that
Say that again, Skip.
So actually, after we make the adjustments or the things that you're suggesting, for the final audit, you'll just make a note that we address those. Is that how it works? If I remember correctly?
Yeah.
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 Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Dave.
Thanks for
Good.
coming.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys do a great job for
Yeah,
us.
thanks as usual.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to have, it's nice to have you. Young banks, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll figure that out, okay? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Craig, would you like to introduce our guest?
Hey, Dan, now you have to, Dan, when you introduce yourself, you have to tell us to make sure we know which company you're working with.
Sure.
I know which project you're working with, but
Absolutely.
go ahead, Dan.
Should I sit up?
Yeah.
Sure, wherever you like.
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's why I pulled it up.
Why don't you sit down where I can see you?
Here, I'll move down.
On camera, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
On camera.
All right, I can move down one.
Don't be nervous.
No.
You just forget the camera.
And once you introduce yourself, we'll go around the room to make sure you know who the board members are.
Sounds good. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Capitello with Delaware River Solar. And,
Oh, go on. Sorry, I thought you were done.
no, go ahead. We might as
Yeah,
well
Skip.
go around.
Skip Wilday.
Judy Hopkins.
Rich Yule.
Doug Frank.
Good morning.
Yeah, Ricky,
Morning.
Pam Conlon.
Morning, Ben.
So you're on the agenda for your Alfred Solar, but I know you're doing more than that Alfred Solar project.
We do have a few other projects that we're working on now. Not ready to really present them yet.
Okay.
But we, the Delaware River Solar, we previously developed the New York Rushford 1 solar project,
Okay.
which we named Podunk Road Solar in the town of Rushford. And it's great to be with the board today. I know we didn't get a chance to meet in person back then because of COVID restrictions were just starting at that point. But we really want to thank the board for all the assistance that we've had over the years. And also want to commend the board for all the work you've done on supporting renewable energy in Allegheny County. It's a really incredibly strong show of support that you've given to renewable energy. And it's very noticed and a lot of hard work was gone into that. As a company, Delaware River Solar, we're a New York State-based company, and we have offices in Calhoun, New York. My office is based in Rochester, and then our main office is in New York City. And we're mainly a New York State team. Most of our employees are here in the state, hired locally. We develop mainly in NISAG and RG&E territories. We're starting this year to expand into Central Hudson, Orange and Rockland, Natural Grid territories. And what we do is we build a lot of community solar projects across the state. So to date, we've built a little over 350 megawatts of power that are turned on and operating around the state. We're one of the largest community solar developers in the state. We also do some larger scale projects, larger than 5 megawatts, which is the kind of cap for community solar projects. Here in Allegheny County, our second project is the Jericho Hill Road Solar Project, which we've named New York Alfred 1 LLC. And that is a 5 megawatt solar project on Jericho Hill Road, just south of the village of Alfred. It's about a 30-acre project site tucked away in the back of a 168-acre parcel, roughly. And as of January this year, we got full approvals from the town of Alfred to build that project.
I know that you've done a lot of environmental work working with them as well.
A lot of what?
Environmental and site work with them to make sure it gets approved.
We did, yep, we did. That it received its negative declaration
Right.
for seeker in January, and that was a very, very thorough review of the town.
Right.
Yeah, so we plan to build that pretty soon. I think we're the last couple of pieces are getting the pilot which we applied for. Tonight, the town board will be discussing the host community benefit agreement, and I think they have a draft of that ready to discuss for approving tonight. And hopefully in the next few months here, we can get all the final pieces put together for the project, the decommissioning plan, or decommissioning bond closer to the town. I think there's a road agreement that we'll have to put in place as well for construction and all that. And then I think early next year, we would plan on starting to build the project. The great thing about this project is that it could power probably the entire village of Alfred, if not more meters throughout the town. So the power, we already have a waiting list for it. To date, we haven't built a project that wasn't fully subscribed to by the time we turned it on and started sending power onto the grid. And I'm sure you know from all the dozen or so projects that you've approved, power, stays locally. People see the benefits on the power bill every month. They just pay for the power that they normally do, but they'll see a discount from our solar farms between 5 and 10%.
You said you have a waiting list to sign up for the project. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Sure. So people can go to our website right now and subscribe to a solar farm.
Okay.
What we do is we'll look at their NISEC or their utility bill, and we'll find the closest solar farm to them. And if we don't have one online yet, we'll put them on a waiting list for one that's coming up.
Okay.
And
So they don't have to be within that residential area or that community area in order to subscribe to it?
that's right. They just need to be in the same utility zone as that project. So the Alpha project is an RG&E, so they'll just need to have an RG&E bill, and they can sign up for it.
Good.
How many parcels, how many different property owners are part of this in
Just-
Alfred?
Just one.
Oh, okay.
It's, just one parcel owned by the same property owner. They actually live on the land and farm it. And then they have, out of that 170 acres roughly, they have 30 in kind of the eastern side of that,
Okay.
tucked away in the back of the parcel.
Okay, I've heard there must be other projects people are talking about in that area, because I've heard other property owners are talking about putting their land under lease for solar. I don't know if that's proper terminology or not, but.
We are looking at one additional project in the town. As far as I know now, that does seem viable, and I think we are speaking with other landowners.
Okay,
in the area.
that's probably.
If we know somebody that might be interested in their site, part of the property we put up our site, should we contact you, or how would we contact you?
Definitely, yeah. They can talk to me about that. We can do an analysis of it and let them know if something looks suitable.
Situations.
Yeah, it's very hard to find suitable land. We look at probably 10 parcels for every one project that we do move forward with. The utility lines can't always carry the power that we would need them to, and the land may also not be suitable in the right zoning district. So we start looking at a lot of land, but not all of it really makes it through to a project.
Where do you see solar energy as a whole in Allegheny County going? Didn't Cattaraugus County have a stoppage as far as approving new ones?
They put a moratorium on it, I heard that.
Moratorium?
Oh, did they? I didn't realize that.
Got a little bit the other day.
Where do you see, I guess going back to my question, where do you see the development of Allegheny County going as far as solar energy?
Well, I think the utility lines in Allegheny County are definitely need some improvement. So right now, that's the main limitation to the capacity that's available on those lines now in substations. I think overall the state sort of sees solar as being just a component of the renewable energy in the state. So maybe at the over the next 3 years, approaching 10, maybe 12, 15% of the actual power that's put onto the distribution grid in the state. So it won't be everywhere. Other things like wind and hydro, I think we'll probably be offering more power more electrons onto the grid than we will need over time. But, you know, I think that solar is definitely it's the cheapest form of energy today. It beats out any other energy, you know, generating facility for $1 per watt in terms of developing and operating it. So I think over time, you may see more solar as the grid gets improved. But we'll have to see.
Where are the solar panels made? Are they made in the US or China? You know, we hear a lot about that.
So a good amount of them are made in Southeast Asia, countries like Malaysia, Cambodia. A lot of the panels that we're sourcing are, we do source a lot of Jinko solar panels, which are made primarily in Malaysia and then imported to the country. Right now, there is a big effort to get American-made utility scale solar panels. Most of the panels that go on rooftops in the country are actually made here in the US. There aren't enough manufacturers that can produce utility scale solar panels. Something about the size of this table is roughly about what our panels look like on a house that might be about half the size of this table. So the wattage is a little different. But we definitely expect to see American-made solar panels coming from Georgia and Arizona pretty soon, probably within the next year and a half.
What's the life on one of those panels, and what happens to them after they die?
So the first panel ever built is still operating today, and that was built by NASA or for NASA. And it's in a museum. It's still producing electricity as long as light hits the silicon on the solar, on the actual panel. So they could really last forever, essentially. We expect to get at least 25 years out of all the panels that we're purchasing before we would consider, you know, replacing them with an updated panel. They may last for 30 years, but over time they do kind of degrade a little bit. So kind of like the windshield on an old car, you know, gets chips or wear and tear to it. The components of them are just, you know, essentially glass, silicon, aluminum frame, and some silver run across the silicon to conduct the electricity that's generated when sunlight hits the silicon. But they're really durable, incredibly durable things. You can throw a baseball at these things 100 miles an hour and they'll last. So.
I have a quick question and then a deeper question. Are your panels rotating panels? Or are they stationary?
These will be tracking systems, so they will rotate, right? They'll be facing the sun in the morning. You know, they have motors that turn panels so they follow the sun throughout the day. And that gets us about 12% more efficiency out of the system. So it allows us to produce, we still are producing 5 megawatts of power. We're just producing more kilowatt hours throughout the daytime. So we can actually power more households, more customers that way.
The second question, thank you for that. The second question is going back to the power grid. And I mean, everybody knows that the American power grid is on the edge. I mean, it's vulnerable to a lot of things that could happen to it. But you mentioned that it needs to upgrade. Can you tell me what the upgrades will need to be from the power companies, and are they willing to do that? Or just tell us.
You mean in our county, Judy?
What's that?
You mean in our county or just?
All over.
Oh,
All over. I mean, the power grid is not just Allegheny County.
Yeah.
The power grid is all over New York State. And you know, a lot of it is ancient.
A good amount is pretty old, yeah. Well, so beginning with this project, we have to make line improvements, and just for the line to be able to carry the power. So that's funding that we provide directly to RG&E to put that equipment on the lines that can handle the power. And that improves that line overall. It's not just for our project, it actually adds some resiliency to that line, so it can prevent against brownouts and blackouts over time. So for every project you see, every solar project, you'll see, those are making those little improvements that the utility wouldn't have made otherwise. For some projects, we also have, further down the line, there might be some improvements on the substations themselves, other metering and fuses and transformers all the way down the line to the substation itself. So that's, starting locally, that's a good way that these projects have a good impact on the local grid. And then regionally, looking across the grid itself in New York State and connecting grids, we don't really have as much of a role in this, but the state and the federal government are now requiring upgrades to our transmission grid. Particularly New York State Public Service Commission is now going to be requiring transmission owners like RG&E and ISAC to upgrade those substations and transmission lines. So
That's interesting.
we'll be seeing a lot more resiliency in the grid over the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Sure.
How much potential power do you lose with snow on them? When I drive through Olean, you see that field right there off of 86. Be 4 inches of snow on it. Are they still producing, or you got to wait till it totally melts off? How's that work?
So they will produce even with snow. Sunlight can travel through about a foot of snow, and when it's actually in the snow, it bounces off the snowflakes and sometimes gets redirected. Will bounce off the panel, go into the snow, and get redirected back onto
So
it.
you're not losing anything with 4 inches of snow on there.
Well, we're losing the daylight hours, obviously, because there's less daylight time in the winter.
Right.
The panels, the physics of them, they actually produce more when they're colder than they do when they're in the summer. So we do produce less, mainly because of the reduced daylight hours in the winter time, but we still produce a pretty good amount.
Okay, interesting. Next.
Sure.
That's interesting. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I know there's a local contractor that, I think is capable of doing this work, LC Whitford, and there are probably other ones. Do you guys try to find GCs in this area? I know you probably have some preferred, contractors that you work with all the time, but is there a way for, our local contractors to at least be able to take a look at something like this?
Absolutely, we do, and we put out open bids for every project. So we usually do find local GCs for every project that are within a couple hours, an hour of the project. On this project particularly, we actually have 2 graduates from Alfred from the electrical engineering program, who are, one of whom is our construction manager. He's actually taught at Alfred again over the years, and
Who's that?
Justin Gaby
Okay.
is our construction manager at EV Solar, which is our sister company. So they handle managing all of our GC contracts. So Justin's looking forward to getting this one built.
Yeah, that's good.
The local
That
labor requirements are always a problem for solar projects. But is that one way you're dealing with it?
We're pretty fortunate to have Justin on board with us here. I'm working with him on at least 6 other projects that are under construction now. Our labor is temporary, for the most part, because construction only lasts about 3 to 6 months. Over the long term, though, we do have long-term maintenance contracts for mowing the lawn and maintenance and operation of the actual facility itself, making sure it's producing to the highest capacity that it can. And those typically see, essentially a full-time person, for every few projects. It's not something that we list in the IDA application itself because it's not that big of an impact.
How close do you have to be to a substation usually to entertain a project?
Well,
Assuming their lines aren't as ideal, I guess.
It really, for us, it doesn't matter where the substation is, it's more where the three-phase power line is. So we'll have to be kind of adjacent to that power line, at least have a way to get to it, to make the connection. What we'll do is we'll tie right onto it. And just connect right into that line.
Is that because of the size of the project? The smaller projects as opposed to the larger ones that you can tie in?
It's, larger projects are looking for connections out of transmission lines. So they'll need to be right on that transmission line too, or on the substation. But we tend to, we're able to connect, right onto the power line itself. So.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
Got a business card?
I do. I've got a couple of my.
All right.
I'll see here.
Everybody's,
Yeah. I'll take one.
Well, thank you very
Yeah,
much
thank
for
you.
coming
Thanks for
down. We
coming
really
down.
appreciate it. It was nice to meet you and gave us great information.
Yeah.
so.
Likewise. Yeah, good to meet everyone finally.
Yeah.
After all these years.
Yeah.
It's,
Glad you made it down, Dan. Thanks.
likewise. We'll keep you posted on how the discussions go with the town.
I'm sure they'll go fine because they've worked with you quite a while now, so they would have let us know if there's something that's a hang up.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yep. I think we're. on
They've
right
done the
track.
most work with any town, to be honest, you know that. But they've been very cooperative and done a lot of work with the town on their seeker. So,
Yeah. It's great to work with Alfred on this.
Yeah.
Everyone, thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move on with the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the special board meeting, May 25th. Skip. And John, okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. The next item is the abstract report. We're looking for a motion to approve that. Judy? And do I have a second? Doug, okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And the last part of the treasurer's report is the 18 financial summary. Need a motion to approve that.
Now move on then.
Doug? And do I have a second? John, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, we do not have a building maintenance report, I believe, this month. And so I would like a motion to go into executive session for discussion of contractual issue. So Skip, and do I have a second? Judy? Okay. executive then, everybody?
One quick question.
Okay. John, okay, thank you. So let us know when we're online, Craig.
We're ready, we're green,
Okay,
they got you going.
11:32. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is, okay, we already did the review and approval of the, well, we didn't approve, because we don't have the final financial audits, that was just a draft. So
Right.
we'll move on to the next, let's see. Resolution to approve local labor requirement waiver for Hume Wiscoy 1. Everybody received that
And
ahead
one
of
and two
time?
together, or just one?
Yeah, the 1 and 2, I'm sorry, thanks Judy. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at that. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution?
That looks good.
Skip, okay. And John, okay, is there any discussion? All right, I have to do a roll call on this one. Judy?
I will abstain.
Abstain, okay. Randy's not on the line?
No, you
Can't
never got
vote
on.
anyway, okay. Doug?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And Skip?
Aye.
And let's vote aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, resolution adopting agency meeting policy. And the reason that we're doing this is so that people can attend and vote remotely
Right.
under certain circumstances. Just ask that you all let Craig know and me, or just Craig. And
Right,
talk
we
to
can
me,
approve it
And we
then.
have to approve it.
It's a change in the law that allows the remote.
Yep. So I know you've all had a chance to read it, and so I just need a motion to approve the adoption of that meeting policy.
I move it.
Judy,
Second.
Doug, okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item is resolution to accept financial assistance application for New York Alfred 1 solar project. I have a motion to approve that resolution to accept financial assistance application.
Sure, I'll move.
Skip and John, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And now we need a resolution to hold public hearing for financial assistance for New York. Excuse me, don't we need to do, that's not correct, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, public hearing.
Just hold the
okay.
public hearing.
Okay, so we need a resolution to hold a public hearing.
I'll move it.
Judy? Second, John, okay. And we need a roll call on this one? Excuse me, is there any discussion? Okay, roll call, Skip,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
Randy's not here, Judy,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, thank you.
Then the only other thing is to accept the labor reporting form.
Okay, is that on here?
Yeah.
I want to
You
skip
skipped
it.
over
I
that.
skipped it, okay, sorry about that.
That's okay, I just want to make sure we have the form so I can start
Okay,
getting,
so everybody has this labor reporting form in their file.
which we have not been doing, because we didn't have a form, now we've got a form, we'll make sure that we get the reporting back from all the companies.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve that, adoption of that form, please? Skip, And Doug, okay, any discussion? The only thing I would say is how are we gonna, what are the logistics of doing that? Are we gonna send everybody, let's agree to send the request for this form out like 15 days before first of all, do an initial letter
Right,
and saying, reminding everybody they agreed to do this.
right.
And providing this form and tell them that we need this by the end of the month following the quarter, 15 days, what do we think is reasonable?
They have to report this already in New York State, so it's just.
And by the end of the month, so Pam, could you make this in the letter? We can help you, Craig can help you with that. Let's say the end.
We'll
of the
write an
month.
official letter, but we'll do it
Oh,
mostly
quarter.
digital. We'll send it to them, so there's no snail mail issues. They'll send it, get a copy of the letter
Okay.
with the form.
And then Pam, can you just start providing those in our month, like when those come in, just put them in our monthly packet so people can take a look at those. We can talk about those
Right.
every quarter, please.
Okay.
So, okay, all right, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thanks. Okay, so, old business, we have other solar project updates.
I have nothing else. I just leave it on there in case there's something that's closed, so we know if another project is closed. But right now, Oya is in the process of closing. And I know Cuba is still gonna move forward, but don't know when it's gonna close, so.
Craig, we.
Everything else is fine. And I will send you today, yes.
Yeah, okay. Really no news on new micro enterprise?
No, we're gonna be
right?
doing that this summer, no.
Okay. And,
All the engineering work that we've done out there is completed, so I would suggest that we'll have CP&L come in and talk about all the results.
at the next meeting?
Yeah. Because I've sent you some of them and I'll send you all the results as I get it, but it's probably time now to sit down and say, what were their findings besides having to read through everything,
Why don't we, should we have
I
a
think
joint
that's-
meeting with the legislators for that? Why not? Is there a problem with that? For them to be aware of it and see it? I mean, it's not top secret or anything, right? What does everybody think about that? I mean, they probably would appreciate what's going on, to know what's going on and what we're thinking
Well,
about.
what I would do there, I don't know about you, John, but I would do that at one of our development
That's
P&D
coming up.
meetings. I'd say I would have them come here first and then have them present at the next P&D meeting.
Make them come down twice?
Yeah, I think they would come. It's not a problem.
Well, yeah, we'll pay them to do it. They do.
But I'm just saying, I think that's what I would do, is why don't you have a discussion with us and then come to the legislature and do a presentation, which we could also attend. I think that's a better, unless you want to just do it at the P&D
I don't
meeting.
know. I mean,
That makes sense.
I'd like it not to just be a P&D. I mean, I think all the legislators.
They're all
wanna
there.
know.
You don't understand.
They all
They're
come?
all
Yeah,
there.
they're all-
Okay,
Comes
so as
down.
long as they know.
No, they're all there.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't want to pull it that quickly because the June 15th is already set and we've already got Arvos coming in as well.
Oh, they coming this,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
good.
Okay, so they're gonna,
That's
so
next
Craig,
week.
you'll ask CPL to be here?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's the engineer you're working with?
Andrew, I can't remember Andrew's last name.
Andrew?
Yeah. But they're ready enough that they could present, what their findings are. And they're gonna say that
Yeah.
what we've designed works and
Okay,
then we need to have next steps discussed.
okay. All right, and then, any new status on small business grant?
What we have to do on that one, by the next 2 weeks, we're gonna get a list of companies, and I think, John, did you get me some companies, or have you discussed that?
I've spoke with a few guys.
I'm gonna actually work with Cuba Chamber, Wellsville Chamber, and we'll get enough company
Yeah,
names.
okay.
That's why,
Maybe Alfred Business Association too.
Yes,
There's
but-
still such
it's not like you can't submit by not being in
a.
there.
Oh, okay.
I just have to have enough names to show there's enough
Oh, okay,
interest. You
right.
see what I'm saying? It's not like
Okay.
we're gonna say, these 20 companies get it, we have 20 companies interested.
There are a lot of, in the smaller villages, I mean, a lot of them had.
I'm not trying to do that now. When we
No,
get the actual application, it's gonna be county-wide.
Oh,
I do
okay.
not have the time and energy to find 20 companies from 20 different communities.
Oh, no, that wasn't what,
It's like, holy
but
crap.
I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
gonna go to 2 communities and they'll get me 20 names.
This is just to get them,
Just to get the
Just to
grant, then
make-
once it's approved, we'll
It'll
make.
be countywide.
None of them do come.
yeah,
Okay.
got it.
Yeah, just by getting on the list does not mean you get the money.
Okay.
since you're interested.
All right, good to go, Judy.
I know, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
not
No,
do it all
no.
the county, it just would take too much time to get every community to give me names.
Okay, then we talked about, when Dave was here, we talked about changing our financial software to QuickBooks. Is that okay with everybody?
I mean, I think it'll be,
It's
and long term,
recommended by
it'll
our,
Makes sense.
be, long term, it'll be easier for Pam too, because it'll
Pam,
give
is
you
that-
better reports.
I
do you
like it
think?
easy.
No, long term, it'll be easier because the audits will be
You'll learn
easier,
curve to go through.
there'll
And
be
they
a
would
learning
probably
curve.
work with us with what categories,
And that's why I want them to
No.
work with us, I want to get a proposal, so.
Okay.
separate the, you know,
Vendors and
so
customers.
Pam, could you just let us know, could you send an email to the board and let us know how much that's gonna cost? And then did you get a price from,
Okay,
BWB to see how much they will charge to train?
to basically train and help set that
All
up.
right,
okay,
hey, can you find that out and then just email the board?
sure.
And, do we wanna set a limit, and so we don't have to hold this up for a month, we wanna say, we'll spend 5,000 or up to 5,000 or up to 10,000, you know, do we wanna come up with a number so we don't have to delay this? Cause just like Craig said, every month you wait is a month, that it's gonna be that
We
much.
basically want to
harder
do
our
it in
audit.
the near future, so by the end of the year, and she's worked with the system, we can just.
It'll be
start.
I think a better seamless.
So if we say not to exceed $10,000, is that crazy or? No, I don't think it'll be that.
No, 'cause your whole audit
They're
is
getting
only
information
that.
Now, right? They're just getting the.
Yeah,
information.
how
Well,
about
I
we
just don't
just-
wanna have to wait until June to say, yeah, go ahead and buy it, and then it's August before we start being able to use reports, or September.
Well, if you can give us up to 5, that we're not gonna spend that
We're
much.
going to be close to that.
No, I know it won't be 2 or 3, and easy, the most of it's gonna be.
I don't think we need, do we need a motion for that? All you public officials know better than I do.
Can't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, Skip, what's your motion?
A motion to go up to $5,000,
Okay,
goes to whatever you need for support with transition to go to QuickBooks.
Okay. do I have a second? John, okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Pam, for working on that. Craig?
Yeah.
Okay, so any other new business that anybody has? Okay, motion to adjourn, please. Judy? And John, okay, thank you.
We ended, we're done.
I should